us across all your favorite podcast platforms. You could find us on YouTube, and please remember to subscribe. You could find us at realmeneatplants.com. My guest today is someone I'm meeting for the first time, so I'm looking forward to getting to know him along with you. John Oberg is an animal advocate dedicated to making the world a kinder place for animals by utilizing the power of social media. He's been a vegan since 2009 and a full time animal activist since 2012. And he became an independent animal advocate in 2018, funded through individual donations, focusing on amplifying pro animal content in the digital space. He's served as director of new media for the Humane League and as director of communications for vegan outreach. John, welcome to the show.
Glenn, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. So, as a child, when you were growing up, people said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Did you say fireman or did you say animal advocate?
What I said and what I felt in my heart were maybe two different things. What I
Okay.
said was just whatever I was randomly interested in at the time,
Uh-huh.
which changed from day to day. It could be an astronaut one day. It could be, you know, uh, absolutely anything else the next day. But I've always had animals in my heart from the moment I was born. My mom used to tell me the story how when I was a baby, I one of our cats like rolled over and fell off the couch,
Uh-huh.
and I was so concerned that I crawled over from the other side of the room to make sure she was okay. So yeah, I've always loved animals and always felt a need to protect them as I view them to be so vulnerable and deserving of our compassion, our consideration, and our respect.
Now, did you, as a child, understand that you were eating animals? I assume you were.
No, I was eating animals, and I didn't actually realize until many years later. I
Uh-huh.
mean, of course, I knew that I was eating an animal objectively, but I didn't really think deeply about it. It wasn't until I was 20 years old when I finally decided to stop eating animals. And of course, I wish I had made that choice earlier, but we all get here when we get here,
Right.
whether it's whether you go vegetarian or vegan when you're 20 or 75. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is you make the change eventually when you realize that the ways in which we're eating have profound impact and consequences on animals.
Yeah, and on more than animals, right? On the
Absolutely.
planet.
On the planet, on our own health, on the conditions that workers are subjected to around the globe.
Right.
There is a wide myriad of issues with animal agriculture, and supporting animal agriculture is a great way to cause a lot of harm in the world. And so, by withdrawing your support of animal agriculture, you can do a great deal of good for many animals, of course, but also just beyond the animals.
Okay, so you were 20 when you went vegan. What changed between 17, 18, 19, and 20? What turned you vegan at 20?
So when I was backpacking in Europe in 2008, and uh, I, I basically made friends with this guy who he wasn't even vegan himself, but he saw that I was eating animals, and he said, if you love animals, maybe you shouldn't eat animals. And I had never made that connection between my love for animals, which I had obviously been expressing to him in a conversation, and my and what I chose to eat or what I choose to eat, what I choose to put in my mouth. And
Uh-huh.
so it was that made me realize, wow, maybe I should change my ways. And so I went vegetarian on principle, and
Hmm.
then I learned how animals are actually being treated behind the closed doors of factory farms and slaughterhouses, and said, I do not want to support this cruelty anymore. I'm going vegan. And I did it. And I thought I might last a few months at this. And 15 years later, I'm still going strong. Best
Right.
decision I ever made.
I remember interviewing another animal rights activist. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He's a professor. Perhaps you know him, Vasile Stănescu. And what Vasile said to me was, when I stopped eating animals, it didn't matter to me if I had no idea if it would be better or worse for my health, and even if it was worse for my health, I still wouldn't eat animals. But he was then just sort of delightfully surprised to find out that it was better for his health. Was it the same with you? Did you have no idea if there would be negative or positive health consequences to stopping eating animals?
Yeah, when I first stopped eating animals, I mean, I had no clue what I was in for, and I thought that maybe I would be, lacking protein. I
Yeah,
thought I would, I had no clue what I was getting myself into, and then I realized a while into it that it's actually significantly healthier for you to not
yeah.
be eating animals, and so that was just a beautiful surprise.
So I assume that at age 20, before you switched and you had been eating animals, you were in good health anyway, right? You were.
I was in decent health, yeah.
Yeah. Did your health change at all after stopping eating animals?
So after I stopped eating animals, I certainly felt a weight lifted off of me, like when I would eat a heavy meal. So
Uh-huh.
meals never felt quite as heavy as they did when I ate animals, and so that was very nice. I didn't feel this like weighted down pressure after meals, but what I found to be even better was I felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders because I always knew deep down that I loved animals and that I was eating animals. I didn't think too much about it, but I thought, as for the thought was implanted far enough back in my brain that it would still bother me on some cellular level. And then when I finally made this commitment to match my eating behavior to the ethics that I already had about loving and caring for animals, I actually was like, wow, I feel so much better not contributing to this cruelty.
Now, I'm sure you're familiar with the work of Earthling Ed, right? Ed Winters. And
I am.
he often does videos available on YouTube where he confronts people who eat animals. Um, is that something you do too? Does your animal rights activism extend to arguing with meat eaters?
So I got my start in animal activism 15 years ago in 2009. And what I started doing in 2009 was handing out leaflets. And so I would go to college campuses, concerts, public sidewalks, anywhere, and I would hand out and distribute free literature that talked about the ways in which animals were being abused and the ways in which we can live and eat better. And over the course of several years, I actually handed out 400,000 leaflets. And that led to many, many conversations. And whenever I would speak with someone, I never viewed it as an argument. I never viewed it as a debate. I viewed it as an opportunity to win someone over, or at least to plant a seed. And so that's how I view effective outreach is that we are planting seeds. And every conversation that we have is not necessarily going to win somebody over. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just going to chip away at the walls that people have up. And so what I focus on in my advocacy is outreach. How do I do that? Well, 10, 15 years ago, I focused on individual person to person outreach, literally on street corners. Today, I focus on outreach in the social media realm. I focus on amplifying pro animal content on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms to give a voice to the animals.
Now, when did you start specializing in social media?
So I initially worked for this group called Vegan Outreach after I graduated college, and they paid me to literally travel around North America handing out leaflets. So I handed out a bunch of leaflets at 35 US states, five Canadian provinces, all over North America. every nook and cranny, South Dakota, uh, uh, New Brunswick, Vancouver, all over the place. And I loved it. I found it to be very, very effective work. And I did this because I thought that it was certainly very, very impactful. Then it was years later when I was when I was still working for Vegan Outreach, and the opportunity presented itself to take over the social media for Vegan Outreach. And I didn't really have much of an interest in doing it. I sort of reluctantly said yes. And then literally within weeks, I realized that I could do more good for animals in one single day of social media outreach than I could in an entire lifetime of handing out physical leaflets. And so it was then I knew I needed to focus on social media. And that was over 10 years ago now. And so I ran and oversaw the social media for Vegan Outreach for a couple of years. And then I left and joined a group called the Humane League, and I ran and oversaw their social media presence for 3 years. And then almost 6 years ago now, I have been doing social media full time independently. And it is by far the area in which I can personally make the biggest impact for animals. And it's a platform and a space where many animal advocates can absolutely make a huge difference for the animals.
Okay, now I don't understand social media too well, so let's discuss that. There is Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. What do you find works best to carry your message? And if I've
Well, if you
left
think
out any other ones, Twitter, whatever.
Well, if you think about what social media is, it is
Mhm.
essentially where everyone is. It is the new town square. And a decade or so ago, there was really only one place that everybody went. It was Facebook, and before that, it was MySpace. Today, it is a bit fractured, and there's different social media platforms that offer different experiences. And some of these social media platforms are more favored by different demographics. So, for example, TikTok is very popular with younger people. LinkedIn is very popular with the business community. And each social media platform offers different types of, or offers different things for depending on what kind of content that you have. As animal advocates, obviously are talking about animals a lot. And luckily, animals are beloved by just about everybody. And so I would recommend that wherever social media platform you are currently most comfortable with, start implementing animal advocacy into your time on that platform. So I'm not saying you have to go from whatever you're doing now to overnight posting every single day about the horrors of factory farming, but at the very least, occasionally mention the fact that you are vegan or the fact that you're interested in animal rights or animal advocacy in general, and you will absolutely find an experience that makes you feel like you made an impact for animals. Because, like I said before, social media is where everybody is, and so if everybody was on the street corner in front of me, I would say, hey, everybody, go there. That's where we're going to reach people. But where everybody is in the digital realm in today's world, and so that's where we've got to go.
Now, there are a lot of people in the country who are not big fans, let's say, of TikTok, and they say that young people are getting addicted to this. How do you feel about that?
Social media is not all rosy. It is not just great stuff. There's some downsides to social media. That being said, I highly view social media as being an opportunity to help animals. It has allowed us to speak to people across the globe in an instant for free. Never before in the history of humankind have I been able to just grab this little uh half a brick size thing, type some stuff in, and somebody in India sees the message, or somebody in Africa, or somebody in Switzerland. we can reach anybody around the globe, and it's democratized information in a new way. It has really made our ability to spread a message incredibly powerful. And guess what? As animal advocates, we have an important message to send. And that message is that the horrors that farm animals are being exploited, and the horrors that farm animals are enduring every single day does not sit right with us. It is not just. It needs to end. And so we have a really powerful message. And so I really recommend that you use social media to the best of your abilities. And it doesn't mean you have to pick up and learn some whole new social media platform. Use the social media platforms that you're already familiar with.
Now, as you were speaking, John, I saw over your right shoulder some bubbles with a thumbs up on it. I don't know if the audience on YouTube will see this as well. What was I just watching, or was I hallucinating?
So what you saw was a feature that Zoom has where if you put your thumbs up, it will give you a
Oh,
thumbs up. And as a hand gesture to go along with what I was saying, for some reason I used a thumbs up. And
yeah, yeah.
Zoom said, "Hey, I am going to throw a thumbs up
So,
there on
so
there
when
and
people
just throw
watch this
Glenn for a loop."
On YouTube, will they see that thumbs up?
Yeah, this is a really big plug for your YouTube instead of listening to your podcast by audio. People can
Yeah.
jump on here and see the thumbs up in
Yeah, they're
person.
not going to see that thumbs up balloon there. So I can do this too. And no, it's not working for me. I have
Oh, there it
small
is. I see it.
thumbs. Oh,
No,
there's a
I see
different,
it.
I got a different kind of thing, and now it won't go away. I got this thumb oh my God. Oh, thank
Your
God it went
thumb
away.
broke the podcast.
So how come my thumbs up was different than your thumbs up?
This is outside my expertise, Glenn. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So I've stumped you. I
Yep.
have stumped John
Only
Oberg
took 18 minutes. Yeah.
on social media. All right. Now, is there anything else I could do that Zoom will create, hallucinogenic images?
I'm sure there's some arm waving that you could do.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
All
I
right.
would guess, but I think that the
Okay.
next, however long the rest of this interview takes, I feel like we might accidentally find out.
Yeah, we might. All right. So, is there one of the social platforms that you find more effective than the others to reach people?
Yeah, so I am just one person, and so as much as I view many different social media platforms as offering value, I don't have infinite amount of resources at my disposal, and so for that reason, I focus on a few platforms rather than all of them. The ones that I find to be most impactful are Twitter, now known as X, Facebook, and Instagram. But I definitely recommend utilizing TikTok as well, as that's where many young people are. And you can have a lot of success on TikTok without even amassing a huge following. Um, if you are in the business community, if you have a startup, I would definitely recommend exploring LinkedIn more. Lots of potential there, especially outside of social media. Um, yeah, I really recommend anybody who's interested in speaking up for animals to just look at the landscape of social media platforms out there and see what speaks most to them and try to implement social media advocacy, animal advocacy into that particular platform.
Let me see if I could stump you again, John. For how many more years are we going to have to say Twitter, now known as X?
Well, I think we've got another year or so of doing that until we just totally transition. And, I
Are
feel
we going
like,
to transition to X, or are we just going to tell Musk to start calling it Twitter again?
I don't think that we could tell Musk anything and he would
Uh-huh.
change his mind about it. So I think that we are at a dead end there. So I think we have to
Is there
just
any
keep
chance he's going to take the rest of his money and buy TikTok and call it Y?
I mean, I think TikTok would like that because if they could, magically make that happen, because obviously TikTok is facing a ban here in the US,
Yeah.
coming up pretty soon in the next few months. So that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Okay. So, where do you spend more of your time on one platform than on another?
Spend a lot of my time on Twitter and on Instagram. That is where I tend to get the most engagement, and that's naturally where I spend most of my time.
That would be
Um,
X and Instagram.
yes, so sorry, Glenn.
Now, Instagram is more visual, right? It's more photos and videos, right? Then,
Yeah, Instagram, and it's very focused on Reels now, which are Instagram's response to TikTok, which is essentially just short form vertical videos that are often chopped up and very attention grabbing.
and
And
Facebook and YouTube are doing the same thing too. They're incorporating
they're
Reels.
trying, yeah.
So eventually, all of human experience will be walking around, taking cell phone videos, and then going home and posting it.
It
It's
already
gonna.
is, Glenn. Walk around the streets and just look at everybody. Everybody's looking at their phone. If you go to a restaurant or a cafe, you will see people taking photos and videos of their food. Sometimes I'm that guilty party and posting about it on social media. That is the world we now live in, and for better or for worse.
Yeah, you ever go to a restaurant, you see two young people who seem to be on a date and they're each on a phone, and I think, are they texting each other? You know, it I don't know if this is an improvement in life. Uh, you
I
know,
mean, I definitely view social media and digital communication as generally a net positive in humanity. I feel like we now can reach people. My best friends don't live in the city that I live in. They live in like they live all over the globe, and it's so convenient for me to be able to pick up my phone and just reach them wherever they are, even if they're traveling. I mean, it doesn't matter where they are, and that's a beautiful thing. But it does make us disconnected from our local lives to a certain degree, and certainly does cause a fair amount of issues in other ways. So, whether or not it is an improvement, I guess depends on your worldview. But I view the democratization of information sharing as a net positive. And if we think about what has the animal agriculture industry had going for them for decades, that is essentially being pretty anonymous, being pretty hidden from plain view. And because of social media and because of digital communication, we now can reach people across the globe with the truth about what these animals are enduring. And many people choose to stop eating animals as a result. I see this every single day.
now there are vegans like um, my friend who I interviewed named Vasile, who don't particularly care about the health consequences. He was just delighted to learn that it was healthy. And there are those who do it primarily for health reasons or initially for health reasons. And there are vegans like myself who aren't satisfied to merely be vegan, but I try to live to eat a healthy vegan diet, which I believe means oil-free, sugar-free, whole plant foods. You look like a healthy guy. Are you on a sort of more health-oriented vegan diet, or do you just eat anything that's vegan?
Great question, Glenn, and thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate that. So I was never health oriented in my whole life. I ate whatever I could. I was a pretty picky eater growing up. I used to just fantasize about pizza all day long. And when I went vegan, that essentially didn't change. I just went from eating non-vegan pizza to vegan pizza, from non-vegan burgers to vegan burgers. And I would consider myself a junk food vegan for much of my 15 years of veganism. More recently, I have decided to start exploring the healthier sides of life, and it's been pretty fun to do this. Um, and I've been eating a lot more whole foods uh, in my life in the last 6 months or so, and that's been really fun. And actually, on that note, I want to mention that just like the last 6 months have been really fun for me. Of course, the last 15 years have been too, because when we choose to eat in a new way, we aren't shutting ourselves off to the foods we've been eating. What we are doing is exploring new ways. And that is a message that we need to get out there to non-vegans, because the vast majority of non-vegans, when they think about the idea of going vegan or just even going vegetarian, they're just going to be thinking about the foods that they can no longer eat. And so, as effective animal advocates, we need to reframe it in a way that better gets people to think about how people can eat new foods. Look at all these new amazing foods that are out there. And in today's world, there are so many great new vegan foods. It seems like there's a new vegan product hitting the market every single day. There's so many vegan restaurants out there and just so much great plant-based food that's available. And so our duty as effective animal advocates is to get people to realize, hey, you're not closing a bunch of doors, you're opening up brand new doors.
Now, do you have a strong sense of how many of us there are out there? What percentage uh, of the United States population is vegan? Canada, Mexico, Europe?
The data is a bit tricky. It's pretty difficult to determine just what percentage we are. If I had to guess, I would say we are between 1% and 3% of the population.
Right.
But the important thing to actually remember is that there's a ton of brand new vegan food out there, and that is actually being pushed by a lot of flexitarians. It is meat eaters who have cut back on the meat that they've eaten and therefore eating more plant-based meals. And so, if you were to get 10 flexitarians, they could make significantly more impact than one vegan. And so I think it is important to celebrate when non-vegans move along that spectrum between non-veganism and veganism, because moving along that spectrum is a victory both for them and for the animals and for creating a more plant-friendly society.
Okay. Well, we'll be back in a moment with John Oberg. You could find him at johnoberg.org, and we'll be right back after this message.
All right, if you've ever wanted to show off your plant-based lifestyle and do it in style, here's your chance. We have some of the most amazing t-shirts, hats, accessories, coffee mugs, and more at shop.realmeneatplants.com. We have statement t-shirts that will bring a smile to everyone's face. I love the I want tofu tonight tee. Plus, we have podcast tees, Real Women Eat Plants gear, Real Kids Eat Plants, and Real People Eat Plants, just in case men, women, and kids didn't cover it all. Yeah, we love you and love that you want to show off that healthy lifestyle of yours. Again, check out our high-quality gear at shop.realmeneatplants.com and enjoy.
We are back talking with John Oberg, who is a social media expert and animal rights advocate, and he combines those two passions. John, I saw on Facebook that you took a trip to near the top of the world to Tuktoyaktuk, way up in northern Canada. Why did you go there? Were there good vegan restaurants in town?
Well, first of all, I have to commend you on your pronunciation of the city. It took me weeks to properly pronounce it.
Oh, I have
Tuktoy.
many, many friends in Tuktoyaktuk. That's why. Been there many
uh,
times.
yeah, yeah. For the listeners who aren't aware, he's definitely joking because I think there's about 100 people who live in Tuktoyaktuk.
All friends
So
of mine, all good friends.
So my mom and we were very, very close. She was my best friend. I loved her to pieces. And in 2013, she was diagnosed with stage 4 small cell lung cancer. And so I took a hiatus from vegan outreach where I was working at the time to take care of her full time. And um, and during, they gave her 6 to 9 months to live, and we were, of course, heartbroken over this. But we decided to try and make the most of our time together, and so we took a few really big road trips together. We were living in Michigan, and so we took one road trip down to Key West. We took one to Los Angeles. We took one to Nova Scotia in Eastern Canada. We took one to the Redwoods in Northern California.
Mm.
And then we had been planning on taking this one other trip, and it was my mom's idea. And the way that she described it was, Johnny, let's just drive as far north as possible into Canada until the roads stop. We turn around and we come home. And so that was the plan. And then unfortunately, she passed away. And although they had given her 6 to 9 months to live, she lived for 2.5 years because she was a
Wow.
fighter, and she was awesome. And I like to think that some of our, our travel together and the immense love that we shared for each other was a reason that she carried on for so long. And so, despite her living on for so long, unfortunately, we didn't get to go on this trip together that we wanted to so badly. And so, years have gone by, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? My mom wanted to do that trip with me. I'm going to do that trip. But a little bit of research, and I found out the furthest north you can drive in Canada is this small village called Tuktoyaktuk up in the
Yes.
Northwest Territories. It is basically, if you go to Vancouver, just go north all the way as far to the top of the continent to the Arctic Ocean. And that is where I wanted to go. And so I decided to make a whole trip out of it. And so I hit the road in mid-June, and I got up to Tuktoyaktuk in late July. And it was an incredible experience. I felt like my mom was right there with me. It was, I'm not really much of a spiritual person, but I felt like this spiritual connection with my mom when I was up there, and it was really beautiful to be able to feel like she was right there with me all along the way.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Were you able to see the Arctic Ocean at any point?
Yeah, I spent a couple days car camping right there on the Arctic Ocean, just a few
Wow.
feet away from it, and it was beautiful. Like I saw beluga whales on
Wow.
the way up and the way down. I saw black bears. It was a really, really wonderful experience, and I definitely recommend that people, take advantage of the beauty that Mother Nature provides. It's the world can be a cruel, heartless place in a lot of ways, but there can also be a really beautiful place. And I think that getting grounded by spending some time in nature can really do us all well.
Now you were all alone on what I imagine was a gravel road going into the towards the Arctic. Was that a
Yeah,
little frightening?
yeah. So it was pretty funny because as I was getting, further and further north up, I saw fewer and fewer small cars, and I
Yeah.
have a Honda Civic, so it is not a giant Jeep or one of these other really big vehicles that
Yeah.
do super well in harsher conditions. And so you get to a certain point in just north of Whitehorse. Whitehorse is the capital of Yukon, the Yukon Territory, or sorry, it's just called the Yukon. And it was you get a little bit further north there, and the paved roads stop. And for the last 500 miles, when you drive up to Tuktoyaktuk, it is on a gravel road. And my there were not many Honda Civics up there, I will tell you that. And I just went for it, and I drove and drove and drove, and it was I think it was 18 hours of just dust everywhere. and beautiful, beautiful views, but absolutely nothing up there. In fact, the gas stations were like hundreds of miles apart, so you had to like get gas every time you saw it. It
Oh,
was a pretty wild experience. And fun fact,
yeah.
uh, when you're driving on a gravel road, despite your trunk, you think your trunk is pretty airtight, right? Well, when you drive on a gravel road for 500 miles, you learn that your trunk is not airtight. And so I have basically all of my possessions in my trunk, and the dirt got up in there,
Wow.
into my trunk, and completely coated in like half an inch deep dust, everything. It took me 4 hours to clean my car when I got back to when I left Tuktoyaktuk and went over to Alaska. So 4 hours to clean up the damage that 1,000 miles of dirt road did to my did to the stuff in my trunk.
Well, I just can't tell you how profoundly glad I am that my mother didn't have an atlas. So I I never made a trip like that. Um, Now, here's another thing I found out about you, that you do an animal rights soccer match every year. Is that true?
Well, I'm glad that the word is out on the soccer
The
game because
word
it's
is
something
out on the soccer match.
I take a lot of pride in. So this is really cool.
Are
So
you a
every year,
goalie?
I am not a goalie. So every year there's a big animal, and there's many animal rights conferences. And for decades, there was a conference called the Animal Rights National Conference. This ran until 2019. Then COVID hit, and that conference ceased to be. And in its place came a new conference called AVA, the Animal and Vegan Advocacy Summit. And this happens every year in the US. It alternates between being in DC and LA. And anyway, I've been going to this conference since 2011. And since I believe 2013, so I guess about 11 years now, I have been organizing an annual soccer game at this conference. And I started out pretty small. And this last year, it was pretty wild. We had like over 30 people play. We had over 50 people come
Doesn't that
watch.
break any
Uh,
rules?
uh,
30 people on the field?
well, we alter the rules to make it
Okay.
as fun as possible and as least chaotic as possible. But it was so much fun, and soccer is a beautiful sport and a beautiful game because it is so simple. It is it only requires a ball. You could literally play it barefoot. You could play it in pretty much uh, all geographic locations. Soccer is beloved around the world, and this conference brings people from all over the world, from Brazil, from Europe, from Africa, from Asia, all over the place. And so, because soccer is beloved, it's this kind of thing that unites everybody and brings people together. And so, organizing this annual soccer game is a big, fun experience for me. And should you, Glenn, or any of your listeners attend AVA next year, which will be in
Uh-huh.
Los Angeles in May 2025. Would love to see you at the soccer game.
All right. Well, I tried to play a little junior varsity soccer in, I think, junior high, but I think I didn't make the team. So,
Well, you know what? The nice thing about soccer is
but
that you don't have to be the top tier talent to still have a good time. It's actually more fun when you get a lot of people who don't play much soccer
uh-huh.
together. That is much better than 10 or 15 people who are like ultra elite athletes.
Well, I wasn't yet a vegan at the time, so it's possible that that hurt my game.
Yes, maybe if you had learned the miracle of plants back in the day,
Yes, I
you
would
would
have
have made the
made at least
varsity
the
team.
JV team. Now, the Brazilians who show up for the game, I'm guessing they're the best players, right?
You know what? I really wish I could say no, but if I'm being honest with you, they were the best players.
Yeah, it's always the Brazilians.
They also took it the most seriously,
Yeah.
and it was pretty intense at times. Yeah,
There's nothing better than a Brazilian vegan soccer player.
this is
Um,
true.
so are there a lot around the world of vegan animal advocacy summits? Are there different events that you go to around the world?
There are conferences all over the world because why? Or why is this? This is because people care about animals pretty much everywhere. You know, this isn't just something that is of interest to any certain demographic. Everybody essentially loves animals and wants to create a better world for animals. And so there are opportunities to go to conferences all over the world. And actually, speaking of Ava, they have done a really good job of expanding globally. They have Ava in South America. It's happening in Brazil, actually, coming up in a couple of months.
And
They
AVA
do one
stands
in
for what
Asia,
again?
Animal and Vegan Advocacy Summit.
Animal and Vegan Advocacy Summit. Okay. So do you find yourself on tour every year, going from one of these to another, several of them a year?
I do definitely find value in attending this conference, but other conferences as well. I occasionally speak at these conferences, and I do occasionally do like some other speaking tours, and I think that speaking is a really great way of connecting with people on a local level. And since I no longer do person-to-person grassroots outreach like I did back in the day, handing out leaflets, almost all my work now comes from behind a phone or from behind a computer screen. It is nice to get myself out there and to get some face time with real life humans and hopefully talk to people about how they can better utilize social media and these powerful tools that are at our fingertips.
Now, how about your extended family? Have any or many of them gone vegan?
Well, unfortunately today there isn't much of my extended family left.
Oh.
But years ago, my family was pretty supportive when they were still around, and my mom really instilled a sense of compassion for animals in me, and really taught me to love animals. And then it was actually me handing her a vegan outreach leaflet that led to her making a decision to stop eating animals. And so she didn't eat animals for the last 5 years of her life, and yeah, she really loved animals, and so many people in my life have definitely opened their hearts and minds to compassion for animals, and it's really interesting. I'll talk to people who I haven't talked to in years, and they'll say, "Hey, I love what you're doing on Facebook or on Instagram, and actually, I'm vegetarian now, or I'm vegan." Or even now I'm open to eating more vegan food because I see you doing it, and so you never really know the impact that you'll have, whether it's on social media or somewhere else. But I promise you that if you are speaking up for the animals, you are definitely making an impact.
Now, your mother, you told us, outlived by far the diagnosis. She had been given, what, 9 months, and lived
You're given 6 to 9 months, and she
six to
lived
nine
for
months and lived
two and a half years.
2.5 years. Do you attribute some of that to her vegan diet?
I believe that because she didn't eat animals, that it was certainly a contributing factor. But I also really think that it was the love that so many of my friends and the community, the vegan community, showed her in
Mhm.
that time that really did it. I took her to these animal rights conferences with me, and everybody showered her with love. And she really knew that she was loved, and I think that was a really, really big part of it as well.
Now, you mentioned friends. I'm sure you have many vegan friends. I'm guessing you still also have some old friends who you met maybe growing up or at school who are not vegan. Um, d- do you find it difficult to continue those friendships, or how has your veganism has it caused any conflict in those friendships?
When I first went vegan 15 years ago, I definitely was more likely to create conflict, or to speak with friends in a pretty blunt way about the decisions that they were making about the foods that they were choosing to eat and the animals they were eating. And then I realized that was a really poor strategy for advocacy. That was only going to cause conflict. It was only going to cause resentment and possibly end friendships. And so I quickly, within a year or so, realized I got to take a step back, and I chose to focus my energy on the general public instead. And Actually, I go out of my way to maintain friendships with people who aren't vegan. I think it's really important to stay out of the vegan bubble. If everybody who you know are vegan activists, that might be maybe a slightly more enjoyable life for you, but that's not reality. And in order for us to influence society, we need to be connected with the general public and with non-vegans. Vegans can't go any more vegan, right? We need non-vegans to be
Right.
influenced by us. And so I think it's really important to actually step out of our comfort zone and not just, I think that like one of the worst things that a vegan can do can just go through their Facebook friends list and unfriend everybody who's not vegan. I think that's a really, really terrible use of their efforts and advocacy, and I think it's really counterproductive. Yeah. So I think that we really need to go out of our way to influence people, but I think to do it in a subtle way, to not make people feel judged, to not make people feel like we are um, uh, calling them out. I think it can be done in a much more peaceful, subtle, beautiful way, and
Yeah.
effective.
I'll tell you my dilemma, John, is that I first became a vegetarian and then a vegan for health reasons. Not that I was particularly suffering from bad health, but when I was 17, I went vegetarian because there was so much heart disease in my family. I didn't want to die when I was 50. And then I was still eating cheese, and I did start to get in my 30s some pains in my chest, and I realized, oh my God, I'm not eating meat because of the saturated fat and cholesterol, but I'm eating cheese, which is saturated fat and cholesterol. So I gave up. I had just saw a bubble with a thumbs down. Are you putting any of your thumbs down, John?
You can see my hands. I don't know why I thought I did that,
What
but
is
I think
going
I
on here?
I think that was just Zoom's subtle way of saying, thumbs down to that cheese, thumbs down to that saturated
Oh,
fat.
I see. Zoom hates cheese. Okay. So anyway, I then went vegan. But again, it wasn't primarily about the animals. It was primarily about my own health. And I didn't talk to anybody about it, really. If people asked me, I would tell them first I was a vegetarian, then I'd say I'm vegan, but I wasn't interested in persuading people. I had done it for my own health. As far as the animals go, if I can make a distinction, I always felt um, it was awful how we treated animals, that it was repugnant to me, but I didn't want to judge it. I didn't want to tell other people they're doing something morally wrong and making the animals suffer. I wasn't interested in confronting my friends and family over that. I just, you know, it was offensive to me personally, but I didn't make it an issue. As I discovered that animal agriculture is destroying the planet and our climate, I find that it compels me more and more to try to convince people to go vegan. Because ultimately, if we continue to treat animals this way and we continue to have animal agriculture, we're going to melt. I mean, it is, in fact, the leading cause of global warming. It's the leading cause of loss of biodiversity. It's the leading cause of pandemics. It's the leading cause of deforestation. You watch the news every night with the weather reports, and you can't quite pin, a given tornado or storm on a ranch that's raising cattle, but cumulatively, all these ranches around the world are doing this to the climate. And so now I feel like we have to, you know, do everything short of confronting people and making them feel miserable. I don't want to do that. I don't want to lose friends, but we have to make people aware that the only hope for the planet is to end animal agriculture. And so my former approach of just not caring what other people eat has changed. And in my mind, it's as much as I care about the animals, I think if we don't have a planet, if we're going to keep going up 2 or 3 parts per million in carbon dioxide every year in the atmosphere, eventually, it's not going to be breathable. So somehow we have to convince everybody to make this change. Do you think that people are more likely to make the change because they begin to understand what it's doing to the environment and the climate, or because they begin to feel for the animals, or because they understand that it will be better for their own health?
People come to this for a variety of different reasons. Personally, I don't really care what reason somebody comes to this lifestyle. As long as they are here and they are here to stay, then that is amazing. And I've certainly found that there are a lot of people who've gone vegan for their health and then incorporated animals as a big reason that they stay vegan. And I think it's because it's one thing if you're a non-vegan, you're eating hamburgers every day, let's say, or every week, and you learn about how animals are being treated, and uh, you know, it's you're complicit in that, right? You're paying somebody else to do this, and people don't want to believe that they're a bad person, they're doing bad things,
Right.
and so people will have their walls up. But if they have already gone vegetarian or vegan, uh, and made changes, positive changes, uh, for other reasons, whether it's the health or the environment, then they are more likely to be like, oh yeah, and it's really horrible what they're doing to animals too. And then they kind of slowly open their hearts and minds to animals. And so and yeah, and something to think about, Glenn, is that being vegan yourself is great, but like as far as our impact on suffering goes, we just go from causing suffering to being a neutral on suffering. We need to get other people to stop causing suffering. How do we do that? We get people to go vegan. And so it's
Right.
really important for vegans to try and be vegan activists. They don't need to make it their full-time job. They don't need to go on the street corners and hand out leaflets or become social media animal rights activists. But they do need to recognize that it's important to influence other people. And whether that's a conversation at a grocery store or just being a kind person and being a shining example of a human being who happens to be vegan, or just cooking up some great vegan food and sharing with people at your office. There are
Mhm.
lots of great, kind, subtle ways in which we can go about influencing the general public.
Agreed. And that's why I use the term shy vegan. I say, don't be a shy vegan. I had started as a shy vegan because I was doing it just for myself. And I think that the more people, uh, are very open about being vegan, the more likely it is that we convince more people to do it. And maybe there's an analogy to the gay rights movement in which when more gay people came out as gay, next thing we knew, we had more gay rights and we had gay marriage. So I just encourage people to not be shy about it. Well,
Yeah, it's a
John,
good way of putting it. I think it's important not to be shy and luckily, like I said before earlier in this, is that people care about animals. Everybody cares about animals. Everybody wants to make the world a better place for animals. We all check yes on that box, right? So it's as if people recognize, hey, there's a lot of vegans out there, there's a lot of vegan food out there, then they are more likely to make a change themselves.
John, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I know that people can find you at johnoberg.org. And also tell us where else they could find you on social media.
Yeah, John Oberg is my handle on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. It's John Oberg Official. Other social media platforms, just search John Oberg, and there's not a ton of us out there, so you should be able to find me. All the links are on my website, johnoberg.org. And should anybody want to connect with me, I would love to connect with them. So thank you so much for having me on the show, Glenn.
John, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. This has been the Glenn Mercer Show, where everyone listening turns vegan, regains their health, and annoys their friends and relatives. Find us on YouTube at The Glenn Mercer Show and across all your major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.